What is the role of religion in our ever-changing world? From the NewsChannel 5 network, this is Issues of Faith.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Issues of Faith. Glad you're with us. We are talking about the return of a Nashville tradition and a discussion about how churches can and should help heal the political divide in our country. Happy to have with us the senior minister at Woodmont Christian Church, Dr. Clay Stauffer. Thank you for being here.
Always good to be back, man.
Thank you. You write regularly for the Tennesseans. Woodmont's that beautiful church there on Hillsborough Road. Author of several books. But I want to ask about this Walk Through Bethlehem. Yeah. This is a new thing. It's not a new thing, but it's been, for the last couple of years, we haven't had it, right?
That's correct.
And so what's the situation?
So Walk Through Bethlehem started roughly 40 years ago at Woodmont with our youth group putting on a live nativity scene. So early 80s, and then over time it just evolved and grew and evolved and grew into the ministry that it is now. We did not do it in 21 and 20 because of COVID. Did not make sense to bring a lot of people into an enclosed space with the pandemic going on. But this year we are rolling it back out, reintroducing it to the public and also to many new people at our church who have never been a part of it.
People come from far away, right? I mean, people come from Hendersonville. This is not just a uniquely Nashville thing.
Correct. There are people that come from Kentucky and I think even Alabama. They bring church vans and they travel from all over to be a part of it. And this is an important part of their Advent tradition, their Christmas tradition. And so we're excited to roll it back out this year.
It's going to be on Sunday, December 11th. It's one day from
Correct.
1 to 7 p.m. And if you go, what do you see? Like, what happens?
So the best way to describe it is think of a live nativity scene on steroids. It is a massive production, 300 to 400 people in costume, recreating the village of Bethlehem the way it looked and felt when Jesus was born, and then you end up out in the courtyard where there is a live nativity scene with animals and camels and goats. So basically it is experiencing Christmas the way it might have felt the night Jesus was born.
And lastly on this, before we move on, how important did you feel like it was to bring this back? And how difficult is it? It's been 2 years. It hadn't been here with COVID. How important was it to bring it back? And is it tough to try and get it going again?
Well, let me say it was difficult to cancel it because this is something that we have done for a long time, almost 40 years, and it's a big part of Woodmont's Christmas Advent season. But we felt like that was the right thing to do. But now reintroducing it, reminding everybody, hey, it's back, we're back. Come check it out, December the 11th. And yes, it's a lot of work to put it on, but we think it's a really important outreach to this community and for many people an important part of their Christmas tradition.
So I want to move on now to this other issue. You've written about it. I know the church has talked about it a great deal, faith and civility in the public square. And so when we look at our politics right now and we see the divisive nature of it, what role do churches have in trying to heal that divide, in your opinion?
Well, I guess it depends on who you talk to, but my answer to that question is that if churches have been part of the problem, meaning if they have fed the fuel of partisan division, then I believe churches need to be part of the solution. And so our church, Woodmont Christian, I call it a purple church. We have Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives. And so churches are called to bring people together out of unity in Christ and then not let the partisan and political and social differences divide them in the church. What's happening is it used to be that people would leave politics out of the church. They'd come worship God together, and then maybe they'd talk about that over dinner or whatnot. Now, what we see in our culture is people are choosing churches based on their partisan preferences. And so that's a problem because that's not what churches are supposed to be about. But we see this growing trend in our culture that you figure out your partisan allegiance and then go choose a church, and I think that's not the way it's supposed to be.
I think I was drawn to that message because there are many who feel like churches have been part of the reason for the increase in some of the partisanship and that kind of thing. And so you're saying churches need to take a different sort of approach.
Yes, and I think that ministers, preachers need to be careful because if you come out with a hard partisan line, you're going to alienate, 40 to 60% of your church. And I think that there are times to talk about issues without going down a specific partisan road. And many churches haven't figured this out. They feel like they got to toe the line one way or the other. And so what's happening in our culture is that the polarization is bleeding into everything else, and we don't have opportunities to be around people who might see the world or issues different from us.
A question, you brought in a series of speakers. You brought in the governor, you brought in the mayor, you brought in David French, who's got a podcast. There's so many things that were mentioned in their talks, but what do you want as a Christian in politics, was a question one of them asked. What is it you want as a Christian? And some Christians would immediately say, you know, it's abortion. You know, I have an opinion on abortion or immigration or whatever.
Right.
But how should we look at that question? What do we want as Christians in politics, in your opinion?
Well, the series you're talking about was done in September, and it was called Faith and Civility in the Public Square. And we brought in a series of speakers, including John Gear from Vanderbilt, Samar Ali, David French. We had Mayor Cooper come. We had Governor Lee come. And we asked them to talk about the role that faith should play in public life, but also how we can honor the separation of church and state in American culture. And some people really have a hard time understanding that. I've always said that we have a separation of church and state, but of course people's politics and values inform the things that they support. And so churches cannot just completely avoid it, but we have to create room for there to be healthy debate and dialogue and not let partisan politics be the main thing. To answer your question, I think Christians, I love Bill Haslam's book, Faithful Presence. That is not a partisan book. Whether you're a Republican, Democrat, you should read that book. Christians are called to love and to be civil and to listen and to not demonize. And unfortunately, what we've seen in our culture is many people who say they are Christians are doing all of those things, and it's not healthy.
And somebody said we have not done a good job of telling people how to interact in the public square. Christians are called to do those things, and yet I think at the other time there are Christians that are saying, well, no, I'm called, we've got to win this battle. You know, that's so critical. It's so critical that, you know, it be X or Y or Z. And so that gets lost when you're talking about civility.
That's right. And for many people, these issues are very emotional. They're personal. And so you can understand how the rhetoric gets heated and they have very strong convictions. And I always tell folks, I don't want you to come off of your convictions or to come off of what you believe, but you have to be willing and able to listen to somebody who might have a different perspective than you do. And that's what we seem to be missing in our culture.
There was the notion of the big sort. I think you've written about this. We've read about this, but talk about that. What is the notion of the big sort?
So Bill Bishop is the author of The Big Sort. He wrote this book a number of years ago, basically saying that in American society, we have been sorting ourselves based upon socioeconomics and politics and race and all these things for such a long time where we live in these bubbles and we're never around people that are different from us. And that's become a problem because then we think that the whole world is just like us, and that's not the way the world is. But Bishop was onto that research a long time ago, and it's continued to play out in American life.
And when you're around people that only think like you do, you tend to become more extreme.
That's right. All the research says that if you are around people who have the same views as you just reinforce each other, you get louder and more extreme. And then you throw in social media, cable news, where having a similar viewpoint or ideology is rewarded and encouraged. And so that's a big challenge that we face.
And so in the midst of, you know, this political atmosphere, you have a big church. You must get pressure from both sides. You say it's a purple church, you know, yep. Democrats and Republicans. Do you feel pressure from one or the other to do this or that or say this or that? And how do you handle that?
Absolutely, because everybody wants their minister, their preacher, to agree with them. They want to know that you see the world the way that they do. And so I do get that pressure, but I'm very intentional to say this is a purple church, meaning we have Republicans and Democrats, and we have people who do not agree on certain issues, and that's okay. We can be united in the love of Christ and worshiping God, and we can talk about all the things where we disagree. The saying we use is, that which unites us, Jesus Christ, is greater than that which divides us. Political ideology, partisanship, and hot button social issues.
So I'm encouraged when I hear that, because I do hope that churches can be kind of, they can bring healing into this kind of broken, divided world. But how optimistic are you? I mean, it's a tall order, and we seem to just get more and more divided. So can churches really do this?
It's a tall order. I don't think that this can be the #1 agenda of churches. I think that the primary agenda is we are here to worship God, we're here to follow Jesus, we're here to serve our community and our neighbors. But this is something that I think if churches say we want to become part of the solution in American life, which is very divided, as you said at the beginning, then we can do series like we did at Woodmont, we can have discussion groups. This is not done from the pulpit, just one-off. This is done in conversation, through relationships, and we can be part of the healing of American culture because we need it.
All right, we will take a break. We'll come back, continue our discussion about how churches can be part of the way to heal the division in America right now. We'll take a break. Be back right after this.